When it comes to DPS in Destiny, even though it sounds somewhat counterintuitive, Stasis is by far the best subclass. Linear fusion rifles are our current highest DPS option, and they are extremely versatile, making them good in every single boss encounter for King's Fall and many of the other recent raids we have gotten. Triple Tap and Firing Line and the Vice Stinger perk make something like Reed's Regret beat out the DPS of weapons like Cataclysmic, even though perks like Bait and Switch let it hit 15% harder. But the main reason that Stasis is as strong as it is comes from a single mod that way too many players overlook, which is Supreme Wellmaker. Yo, what's going on guys? It's G-Miners here, and in this video, I'm going over one of the best Titan builds for endgame content. Not only does this build have amazing ad clear and ability spam, but Stasis abilities are going to shatter with this build and hit much harder than abilities from other subclasses. The main centerpiece for this build, however, is that it makes us exactly 50% tankier, so we can absorb more damage before death, and we are constantly going to be able to proc Font of Might, so that our Stasis weapons, aka Reed's Regret, will be hitting 25% harder against bosses. This build is so strong that I would highly recommend bringing it into day 1 raids and master content, as long as Stasis weapons stay within the DPS meta, and although you can hit for similar damage numbers on all other classes, Stasis is notoriously easy when it comes to generating elemental wells that give you the Font of Might buff. In endgame activities that most of the community struggles with, you definitely don't want to make your life any harder, so ease of use is a big factor in today's build. I haven't even began to scratch the surface of what Stasis Titans are able to do, but let's start off by going over the subclass layout so that you guys can see everything you're going to need for this to work. Stasis currently doesn't have much variety, so the only major thing that you do want to have on out of all of your abilities and your super is going to be the Glacier Grenades. Again, these are a staple of the build, so if you don't have them, like 90% of what we are doing is just not going to work. And then for our aspects, first up is going to be Tectonic Harvest. With this, we are going to get 2 fragment slots, and then we also gain the ability to generate stasis shards anytime we destroy a stasis crystal. Grabbing shards at base is then going to give us melee energy, which helps maintain this cycle of using our melee to destroy grenades instantly. Then we also have Diamond Lance, which gives us 3 fragment slots. This is going to give us the ability to spawn in Diamond Lances when we destroy stasis crystals or we defeat frozen targets. These can then be grabbed and used either to throw or slam on enemies. For the most part, I just use these to throw, especially in end game content. But the best part about this combo, and with how much damage we are dealing with shatters, is that you can nade a group of adds, deal shatter damage through that, grab the Diamond Lance that spawns from the grenade or any kills that you manage to get, and then freeze and shatter enemies again. With this combination, we are going to get 5 fragments, which is amazing for the build. Fragment number 1 is going to be Whisper of Shards. Shattering a stasis crystal gives us 500% increased base grenade ability regen. This lasts for 6 seconds, but shattering multiple crystals increases this to a 10-second max and keeps refreshing it on more crystal breaks. For damage phases, since our Glacier Nade has something like 4 to 5 crystals each, we can then spread this out over a large period of time, so we maintain the 500% regen over something like 20 or 30 seconds, while also refreshing our Font of Might as we are making more and more stasis shards with each break. Number 2 is Whisper of Rhyme. As I mentioned, shards will also give us healing, and if at full health, a pretty beefy overshield. On screen now, you can see the values of how this works exactly, but in short, we get 12 or 35 HP, depending on the size of the shard we grab, and at max, we are going to get 100 HP as an overshield. And this lasts 10 seconds, unless we manage to get more shards to extend the duration, and then add health back to the overshield. Third up is Whisper of Torment. With this, we will now be gaining grenade energy whenever we take damage. In a lot of situations, normally when clearing adds, we might just chain detonate the full grenade, so this will help us get the rest of our grenade energy back, along with high discipline. This gives 4 energy back on damage or 17% back when critical, and has a 1-second cooldown, so this triggers pretty often. Basically, as long as you are taking damage, you can get your full grenade back in just 25 seconds at the worst. Fourth is going to be Whisper of Conduction. This makes stasis shards track to us, and I'm going to admit this is kind of useless in the sense that there isn't any major benefit from this fragment, but for damage phases and general play, this is purely for ease of use. You don't really want to break a crystal and have to run into it in every single situation. And then finally, fragment number 5 is going to be Whisper of Fissures. This increases both the damage and the area of effect when shattering stasis crystals or enemies. This is a 100% increase, which is wild. Anytime we can get double damage for our abilities, it's worth it. And this is what makes things like our super and our ability spam as strong as they are, so definitely make sure to have this on at all times. In my experience, there isn't any one exotic that fits this build perfectly. Hoarfrost does give you more crystals for your barricade, which is great, and Armamentarian could give you double grenades as well, but since this is mostly a build for damage phases and high DPS output, I tend to just stick with Aeons. This, with the Sect of Insight mod, allows you to generate heavy ammo for your team when finishing champs and mini-bosses. This isn't going to give you heavy ammo, but ideally, you will have other players running Aeons with you and get ammo through them. After that, you are going to want to have the following mod setup. First up is going to be Elemental Shards. This is what allows the shards that we grab to count as Elemental Wells. We are going to be spawning shards through a damage phase with our grenade, as I mentioned, so this is going to be perfect for getting Font of Might to stay up and last for an extended period of time. After this, you do also want to have on Elemental Time Dilation. This is going to increase the amount of time that duration-based well mods last. We get a small increase at base, and then a larger increase with multiple stacking mods on. On screen now, you can see that well mods with a base duration of 11 seconds, which is going to be Font of Might, last 14 seconds now at 1 copy with Elemental Time Dilation, 17 at 2, 21 at 3, and then 31 seconds at 4 copies. With that said, 2 or 3 copies is going to be what you aim for with our final mod, which is Font of Might. Obviously, running 3 of these is going to be better, but 2 is still going to be good. And it might be all that you can run if you do opt to max out your chest piece. Putting Font of Might on my chest piece means that I do need to go down to a minor stat mod in most cases, and I don't have 3 resist mods on. If I do end up running 2 copies of Font of Might and remove it from my chest piece, I could then get more resistance. Just depends on what you think is best, and really comes down to how long a damage phase is. Other than that, for the build, you will want a God Roll Reed's Regret to optimize your damage. God Roll is going to be triple tap and firing line for any group settings, and for solo play, Vorpal is going to be the best option overall in my opinion. And then you are also going to want to get Enhanced Battery if you can. I personally don't have that. And then the Vice Stinger Origin trait if you do have an older roll. This is what a lot of teams ended up using on day 1 as a DPS meta, and I figured I'd go over a build that made Font of Might super self-sufficient. This is what I used for the War Priest challenge this week, and what we will more than likely use for Golgoroth and Oryx as well. Having a Warlock drop well for a buff, and then use something like Divinity, means that 5 players on your team can get a buff, debuff, proc one of the best damage perks in the game, and then also use Font of Might for an entire damage phase. This will all be possible thanks to Supreme Wellmaker, which spawns in 3 Stasis Elemental Wells when using your super. Let me know your thoughts on the build in the comments below, and make sure to stop by my Twitch to say hi, and then come hang out. We're in the process of doing speedruns and some low mans for different raids, and make sure to also join the Discord if you guys want to see the builds and the community we have over there. Anyways, that's all for this video, guys. As always, have a good one. Peace.